Hello, welcome to Godfather Barbecue and Italian. So, listen, folks, today we have, I know I say this all the time, something very special, but it is. I did this last fall and I had to do it twice within a week and a half, a 10-day period. Had to eat this meal or cook this meal twice just to make sure it wasn't a fluke, okay? It's that good. We're going to do a low and slow roasted sirloin strip, New York sirloin strip roast. Okay. We just did a video yesterday. You should go back and watch that. It's a real quick video on how we broke a whole New York sirloin strip down. So we broke it into a roast, and these are actually the steaks that we vac sealed. The most bang for the buck. This is Black Angus choice. Okay, so steaks real quick or beef real quick. Select at the lower level, choice at the medium, prime at the high, and Wagyu at the exquisite. Okay, this is actually a step in between choice and Angus. Excuse me, and prime. So this is Angus. Um, it's what we'd call a high grade choice, and you can see if you look in here, the marbling is. I don't know if the camera's going to pick that up or not, but significantly better than your typical choice. And that's what you look for in beef is all those fat specks. That's going to create the tenderness, and the fat's going to also give you more flavor. You can do this with the ribeye too. I like the sirloin better because you get the best of both worlds. You can get one more world. There's more flavor, okay, than the ribeye. The sirloin just has that bold beef flavor. I like that while still keeping it tender. It's not quite as fatty as a ribeye, but the fat is there. It's just intermuscular fat as opposed to sections holding like the spinalis and a ribeye together. That's usually the fat that people like to eat and is the most edible part. But we're going to expedite this. We're going to do a dry brine. We're going to do this low and slow, 200 degrees. And it's not a barbecue recipe. Newsflash. And this is why I say it was an accident. I had to do it twice. We're going to do it in the oven. So you can make this anytime, anywhere, okay? We're going to do a dry brine overnight, kosher salt, real thick. And you're going to put it on a rack like this, okay? It's important to put it on a rack. Get it up so the air can circulate, and that's what creates, it enables the salt to dry brine the meat. It's going to pull the moisture out and then reabsorb it. And when you see it in the morning tomorrow, before we put it in, it'll look like a different roast, okay? Because it's going to take on a dry texture, and it's going to be great. It's just try this, okay? And dry brine, it's real easy. Kosher salt. I'm going to start on the backside, or what I call the fat cap backside, because we're going to end up resting it on the fat cap. So the meat portion will be exposed, and that'll enable everything to work its way down into the more of the center core and then through the whole roast as far as the seasoning and the flavor and the moisture, the salt will develop, okay? So we're going to start on the backside, and I'm going to be generous. This is a big piece of meat. This is about just shy of, what we say, 6 pounds, Tina? So we cut this off a whole strip. And I'm going to do all sides. And this on the backside isn't necessarily going to penetrate the meat. It won't, as a matter of fact, because that fat's going to be a barrier. But it'll help texturize the fat. So it'll, at the end of this recipe, we put it back in a 500-degree oven. And that'll enable it to get a real crisp bark on it. So we're going to do all sides. Don't be afraid. Okay, we're going to end up with the meat side up. No binder or anything on this, just straight right onto the meat. Okay, make sure you dry your meat off very well. You'll see it in that breakdown video I did. Get your corners, your edges rather.
And people don't want to use just regular table salt to do.
Oh, definitely not. I mean, if it's the only thing you have, you can, Tina. But you got to be real cautious of the amount because it's 3 times as potent or as effective as kosher because of the size.
Right.
So if you do happen to use or need to use table salt, great point, Tina. Be very careful. Do not be as liberal with that because a little goes a long way in that world. Okay, so this is pretty good. I'm just going to pat it in on the meat sides. We're going to drop this into a nice cold refrigerator again on a rack so that air can circulate. overnight, preferably if you can do it. Like we're gonna be close to a 24-hour dry brine here, but if it's overnight, it's overnight. But make sure you get at least 12 hours of this. 24 is better. All right. We'll see you tomorrow. All right, folks. So we're back. Overnight dry brine with the sirloin roast. You can see this is exactly the effect you want. It's nice and dry. It's tightened up. Now the important thing, one of the most important things of this whole recipe is this has to sit out for at least 3 hours, 3 to 6 hours, believe it or not. Because the low and slow we're going to do with this, I want this as room temperature as possible when I put this in the oven. We're going to roll it 200 degrees for the better part of 3 to 5 hours until we hit 115 in the center. Okay, we'll get more into that as to the process as we do it. But the reality in the whole recipe is going to be low and slow, hit 115. We're going to pull it out. We're going to rest it at that point, okay, instead of at the end for between an hour and an hour and a half. Hour and a half is even better, okay? We're going to pop it back in the oven at 500 degrees. And depending on what your final temp or texture results are going to, or that you want, medium, rare. I'll tell you about the temperatures then, but medium's going to be between 125. So we're going to put it in that 500 degree oven for about 10 minutes at that point. I don't want to get too far ahead or confuse you, so we'll walk you through the steps individually as we do them. So we're going to set this out. We just pulled it out of the fridge. It was in for a day. In the meantime, the other star of the show is this butter rub, if you will, garlic butter or herb rub that we're going to encase the outside, kind of make like a paste. So for that, we're going to combine 2 sticks of butter. This is going to be room temperature. You're going to just put this together by hand and mix it all together. So we've got 2 sticks of butter. We're going to use a teaspoon of oregano. You're going to use 6 to 8 garlic cloves, or 6 big ones, 7 big ones like this. We're going to dice those up. We're going to use, now remember, this roast has no pepper on it. It's just salt. So I'm going to put the pepper into the butter mixture, because if I add the pepper to this and then the butter mixture on top, when we rub that butter mixture in, it's going to disturb the pepper. So we're just going to put the black pepper in there. Coarse black pepper if you can. So we're going to use about 1.5 teaspoons of that. Okay. We're going to use a teaspoon of rosemary and a teaspoon of thyme. I use dry with this recipe. I'm a huge fan of fresh herbs, but the only issue for me is at the end when we pop it in that 500 degree oven. Even though the herbs will have been low and slow at the 200 with the roast in the meantime, those fresh herbs will have a tendency to burn on you, and you could get kind of a funky bitter taste from that. So on this recipe, I recommend dry. Again, you can use either or. And I just want to talk real quick about why low and slow is so important and why it makes such a difference. There's 2 reasons. One is the tenderness. That's the main reason. Tenderness, when you cook meat slow, what happens is you cook beef. What you're really doing is breaking down the connective tissue and the fat inside what's inside the meat. And that's what creates the tenderness. Now, if you think about it, if you put this in an oven at 350 or 375, like a traditional roast that you would do, that process still happens, but it's for much less of a time. So it's spending, it's getting pushed right through that time to your done temperature. If you can keep, and this I relate to barbecue. In the barbecue, we call that period of time the stall, where everything's breaking down. If the longer you can keep your meat in that temperature zone of where those muscles and that fat and connective tissues are just breaking down, that creates the tenderness, which creates the fat in there breaking down further, creates even more flavor. So that's the first reason. It's going to give you a much tender result. That's the thing that made me want to do this video. Is the flavor is great, and the consistency of cooking is the other thing I'll talk about in a minute. The flavor is great, but that tenderness you're going to get from doing it this way is going to blow your mind. And I do a lot of barbecue, a lot of tender. That's your job in barbecue, is taking a rough cut of meat and making it tender. This blew my mind, and it's done it twice in a row. And everybody I've talked to agrees it's the way to do it. The second element of why low and slow works great is, Tina and I know, we know this, and it's always happened. It happens to everybody. When you cook a roast traditionally, you notice that your end pieces are more done than the center, so it's not a consistent um, cook as far as medium rare, rare, well done. Sometimes you get all three of those aspects when you cook a roast in the oven at 350 or 375, and to some folks it's frustrating. To some folks it works out. Some like it more well, and some, what have you. But this method is going to give you, not only from slicing end to end, the same slice you're going to get here, you're going to get in the middle, but also when you slice it and you look around the circumference of the meat, you'll also notice you won't have that gray ring. It goes, dark gray, pink, red. All that's eliminated. This is all going to be like one. It's amazing what this process does. So many different, helps so many aspects of frustration when you cook these. Okay, so we're going to let this hang out for 2 or 3 hours. In the meantime, when that's done, I'll show you how we put the butter rub together, and we'll get it in the oven at that point. So we'll see you in a couple. All right, time to make our butter mixture. All right, so I'm going to spread this over the roast. I'm only going to, a couple things real quick here. I'm going to cook this fat cap down, okay? And I'm not going to, it doesn't make any sense to put the butter rub on the fat cap, because it's not going to penetrate and just going to drip into the pan, okay? Not the seasoning or flavor will not penetrate fat. So I'm just going to rub this and incorporate this over in the top and the sides of the meat itself, okay? All right, so we're ready. This is spread out nicely, about an eighth of an inch coating if you can. I'm gonna go ahead and drop a probe in. If you don't have one of these, it's okay. This is gonna read me the internal temp of the cook the whole way through. If you don't have one, I'd start checking just to be safe around the 3 hour mark with a roast of this size, but reality, it's gonna be 4.5. We're looking for 115 in the center of the roast. We'll see you then. All right, we're back. Tina, remember what I said about checking it at 3 hours?
Yes.
Reason why. This was done 3 hours and 5 minutes. So it just goes back to every piece of meat can cook differently. So this could have very well gone 4 hours. But definitely shouldn't be it for a 6 pound roast any less than three. It was 3 hours and 5 minutes. It looks horrible right now. Don't freak out. It's been cooking at 200 degrees. So you can see the garlic, everything has come in nice to the meat as far as flavoring it goes. So now this is the most important part of this whole process. You have to let this rest for at least an hour, okay? Hour and a half is better. So we're going to shoot for an hour and a half. I'm going to just tent it in aluminum foil loosely. Okay, and by resting it, those juices inside and all that moisture is going to redistribute. And that's the secret, along with the low. I mean, it's part of the secret. There's a lot of elements to this that make it all work in the end. Okay, so tent it loosely. Don't wrap it. Just tent it loosely, and we'll see you in an hour and a half. All right, so we're back after an hour and a half rest, and I got my oven at 500. Before and after. Wait till you see the after, folks. Okay, I'm gonna pop it in. I'm gonna put this in for. You can do anywhere between 10 and 15 minutes, depending on how well you want it. Because it's rested for an hour and a half, I'm gonna do this closer to the 10-minute side. I'm gonna shoot for like a medium rare, more medium than medium rare in between there, because we've got some folks coming tonight that don't like it so medium. If that makes any sense. We'll see in 10. All right, so we're back, 500 degrees, 11 minutes. End result looks beautiful. You can see the garlic, you can see the rosemary. You can smell it.
Smells delicious.
Yeah, yeah. So what we're gonna do for the viewers at home is I'm gonna slice just a little piece of this off because, as I said, we're having folks over for dinner, but I want you to be able to see what we're talking about here. So I'm gonna do this end. Oh, yeah. All right, a little technical glitch there. Just sliced the first piece. Again, I'm just going to take a little piece of this off so you can see
That looks delicious.
what we're talking. You see how there's no gray? It's just, it goes from the crust right through.
Yep.
It's beautiful. And it's, look at the tenderness.
Yeah.
Shall I?
Shall you?
I love the end pieces too. It's melting. Even the end piece. Folks, give this a shot. Flavorful, juicy, tender. You have to experience it. Anyway, thanks for your support. If you like what you see, like, share, and subscribe. And we'll see you for the next one.